Good evening. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclasts, the podcast. This is an extra special bonus episode as a thank you for 200 subscribers on YouTube. Man, I still can't believe it. That's fucking awesome. Thank you, you guys. Since you guys are the goat, I thought I'd kick out a little goat lore. This is completely unassociated with the series I'm doing now. It's all goats, all the time. But I have an ulterior motive for this as well. I don't have health care. I don't have a dental plan. I don't have any of that shit. And my two front bottom teeth, I really think they might be falling out in the next week. So this is also just a warning for future episodes. If I sound like a grizzled 1940s prospector or I whistle when I talk, please go easy on me. Yeah, I just thought I'd kill two birds with one stone. Stone that it looks like I've been chewing on my loose two front bottoms. Anywho, because you guys are the goat, I thought I'd kick out some goat lore. So let's get into it. Goat. Deep, dark, dank, demonic goat lore. Come on! By the way, that introductory beat, that's by Scarlet Rosewood. It's called The Devil Within Me. I got it off Pixabay, which all their music and sound effects are the vast majority of them, unless noted otherwise, so I know not to use them, but everything pretty much on there is license free, copyright free, so I'm saying it now. But if anyone's interested, you can go on there, check out lots of music, lots of good stuff on there. You can donate to the artists, so yeah. Anywho, let's conjure up this beast. The relationship between humanity and goats stretches back to our earliest days as a species, but somewhere amongst this long history, the goat transformed from mere livestock into something far more unsettling, a symbol of primal terror, demonic presence, and forbidden knowledge. To understand why the goat became so thoroughly associated with devils, demons, and black magic, you know, all the cool fun shit, we must journey back to the ancient wilderness, where the boundaries between human and animal, sacred and profane, were far more flexible than they are today. In the mist-shrouded mountains and shadowy forests of pre-Christian Europe, the goat represented something both vital and terrifying. The untamable wilderness that existed just beyond the safety of the village walls, the place where civilization ended and chaos began. The ancient Greeks recognized this duality in their god, Pan, the horned deity of wild places, music, and primal panic, where we get the word panic. Unlike the Olympian gods who presided over ordered aspects of human society, Pan embodied the wilderness itself. He was Pangenitor, all creator, and Panphage, all devourer. Half goat, half man, playing his pipes in lonely places where humans feared to tread. But Pan wasn't merely a nature god. He represented a specific kind of terror that still echoes in our language today. The word panic derives directly from Pan, describing the sudden irrational fear that seizes travelers in lonely places. That feeling of being watched by something unseen in the forest. This was no gentle nature spirit. Pan was a predator whose presence could drive mortals to madness, whose lust was as boundless as the wilderness he ruled. The darker aspects of Pan, often omitted from sanitized mythological accounts, tell of a being who inspired terror not through malice, but through sheer otherness, a being whose very presence violated the ordered world of humanity. Beyond Greece, similar horned wilderness deities appeared across ancient cultures, suggesting that the archetype taps into something fundamental in the human psyche. These were not gods of hearth and home, but of liminal spaces, mountains, forests, caves, places where the veil between worlds was very thin. The goat's association with these deities was not an accident. Goats themselves are liminal creatures, able to thrive in harsh terrain where other livestock can't, climbing upon dangerous slopes and precarious precipices with seeming ease and agility. Their horns make them appear both regal and threatening. Their distinctive eyes, with horizontal, rectangular pupils that seem to watch from multiple angles at once, only enhance their unsettling quality. In ancient agricultural societies, the goat represented both prosperity through milk, meat, and hides, and danger through their association with wild, inaccessible places. This duality made them perfect symbols for the gods who embodied both life and terror, creation and destruction. The biblical tradition further cemented the goat's connection to darkness through the concept of the scapegoat, described in Leviticus 16. On the Day of Atonement, 2 goats were selected, one sacrificed to God, the other, the scapegoat, symbolically laden with the sins of the community and driven into the wilderness to Azazel, a mysterious desert demon, also thought to have been one of the fallen angels who came down with Semyaza and landed on Mount Hermon to ultimately breed the Nephilim. This ritual powerfully encoded the goat as a carrier of human impurity, a creature that could absorb our transgressions and carry them away to the wild places beyond God's domain. Azazel himself, often depicted as a fallen angel with goat-like features, became associated with forbidden knowledge and the corruption of humanity. In the Book of Enoch and other apocryphal texts, Azazel teaches humans forbidden arts like metalworking and cosmetics, leading to their corruption. This connection between goats, forbidden knowledge, and demonic influence would echo through later occult traditions. The goat of Mendes represents another crucial step in the goat's transformation from sacred animal to demonic symbol. The ancient Egyptian city of Mendes hosted a cult dedicated to a ram deity, occasionally depicted with goat-like features. Greek travelers misunderstood this cult, claiming that the Egyptians worshipped a goat-headed god, and this interpretation spread through the ancient world. By the medieval period, the goat of Mendes had become conflated with Baphomet, the supposed deity of the Knights Templar. During the Templar trials in the early 14th century, under torture, some knights confessed to worshipping a bearded head or goat-faced idol named Baphomet. Though historians debate whether these confessions were genuine or fabricated, the association between goats and heretical worship had entered the European imagination. As Christianity spread across Europe, old horned gods like Pan, Cernunnos, and Faunus were demonized, literally, their attributes absorbed into the developing image of Satan. The devil acquired goat-like features, horns, hooves, a goatee, and sometimes the hindquarters of a goat, transforming ancient deities into the personification of evil. This process was not accidental but deliberate. By depicting the devil as a corrupted version of pagan gods, Christianity positioned itself as the true religion supplanting false ones. The goat's association with lust, fertility, and wild behavior made it particularly suitable for this transformation. In medieval witch trials, accused witches often confessed, again, frequently under torture, to kissing the devil's hindquarters or engaging in orgies presided over by a goat-headed figure. These confessions, recorded in documents like the Malleus Maleficarum, cemented the goat's connection to black magic in the popular imagination. The Sabbatic goat, depicted in Eliphas Levi's famous 1856 illustration Baphomet, represents the culmination of this symbolic evolution. Levi's Baphomet combines elements of various traditions: the goat head for medieval devil imagery, the caduceus of Hermes, the torch of knowledge, and the binary symbols of male and female. This figure embodies the principle of inversion, turning sacred symbols on their heads, that characterized occult practices in the Victorian era. Levi himself claimed that Baphomet was not evil, but represented the absolute principle of harmony and balance. But to the wider public, the image simply reinforced the connection between goats and dark forces. This association would continue through modern occultism, from Aleister Crowley's writings to contemporary satanic imagery, ensuring that the goat remained the primary animal symbol for demonic forces in Western culture. Despite Christianity's efforts to eradicate belief in horned wilderness deities, the old gods never truly disappeared. Instead, they morphed, adapted, and survived in the folklore of rural and isolated communities across Europe and beyond. In the mountains of Appalachia, the forests of Scandinavia, the remote valleys of Eastern Europe, and the mines of South America, stories persisted of horned beings that watched from the wilderness, beings that demanded respect and inspired primal terror. These folk survivals suggest that the archetype of the horned wilderness entity taps into something deeper than religious belief. Perhaps an innate human recognition that the wild places beyond our control harbor forces we can scarcely comprehend. European folklore abounds with tales of satyr-like beings that continue to haunt the forest long after the old gods were supposedly driven away. In the mountains of Greece, shepherds still told of Pan playing his pipes on moonlit nights, his music capable of driving listeners to ecstasy or madness. In the Black Forest of Germany, the Holzfräulein, or Wood Maiden, sometimes appeared as a goat-legged woman who could either help or harm those who encountered her, depending on their treatment of the forest. The Slavic Leshy occasionally took on goat-like features, a shape-shifting forest spirit who could mimic voices and lead travelers astray. These beings weren't evil in the Christian sense, but operated by their own rules that often placed them in opposition to human interests. Encounters with them typically occurred in liminal spaces, at twilight, in the mountains, near ancient standing stones, or along old paths that crossed between human and wild territories. The phenomenon of devil roads and phantom goats represents another fascinating survival of horned folklore. Throughout rural Britain and continental Europe, certain roads and paths gained reputations as places where travelers might encounter supernatural beings. They often appeared as black goats with unusually large horns or glowing red eyes, sometimes walking on their hind legs like humans. In Cornwall, tales of the Dobby or Bukka described a goat spirit that haunted crossroads and mine entrances, demanding respect from those who passed. In the Pyrenees, the bouquet was a goat-legged being that could pass for human from a distance but revealed its true form up close. These entities weren't necessarily harmful, but their presence was always unsettling, a reminder that the wilderness had its own guardians and observers. Yeah. Hold on, I gotta deal with this goat. The recurring motif of these beings appearing near old roads, boundaries, and transition points suggests that they served as liminal guardians, marking the edges between human civilization and wild nature. Mining folklore provides some of the most compelling evidence for the persistence of horned deities in folk tradition. Miners, working in the liminal space beneath the Earth's surface, developed their own pantheon of supernatural beings, many of them horned or goat-like. In the silver mines of Bolivia, the entity known as El Tío, or the Uncle, ruled the depths, depicted as a goat-headed devil figure to whom miners made offerings of alcohol, tobacco, and coca leaves. All the good shit. El Tío wasn't evil but capricious, demanding respect and payment in exchange for protection and mineral wealth. Similar beings appeared in mining folklore across Europe. The Bergmunch in German mines, the Knocker in Cornish mines, sometimes depicted with horns, and the Coblynau in Welsh mines. These underground horned entities suggest that when humans venture into the Earth's depths, places that are literally beneath civilization, we instinctively revive the ancient archetypes of horned guardians who rule these liminal spaces. The black goat archetype appears in diverse traditions across the globe, hinting at a nearly universal human response to the goat's unsettling qualities. In Scandinavia, the Krampus figure, a horned, furry companion to St. Nicholas who punished naughty children, carried explicit goat-like features, including a long tongue, cloven hooves, and a basket to carry away little bastards. Though eventually incorporated into Christmas traditions, Krampus clearly descended from earlier alpine horned deities like Percht, who led the wild hunt through winter skies. In the Basque regions of Spain and France, the Acrobelts, or black goat, was worshipped in caves and remote locations, believed to be a gathering place for witches. This being wasn't purely evil, but represented the wild, untamable forces that existed outside of Christian control. In Appalachian folklore, the black goat in the woods appeared as a harbinger of misfortune or death, often seen before disasters or family tragedies. These regional variations, though culturally distinct, shared common elements: horns, associations with wild places, liminal qualities, and the power to inspire both reverence and terror. If I could quickly insert one of my own strange encounters, there was a moment when I was on a healthy dose of psychedelic drugs when I don't even know if encounter is the right word, but we'll go with encounter, because it wasn't a physical thing. It wasn't like projected outside of me, but like it was and it wasn't. It's really hard to explain. Drugs. Anyways, I communicated, we'll say, with some sort of horned being. Like it was it was like the skull of a goat or an elk or something, a large horned creature with red eyes and just a massive black body that was made of guns and bones. And it was just a wall, just the skull with red eyes with antlers that stretched way up into the sky like fractals just forever, and a body of just blackness everywhere made of bones and guns. It was one of the coolest but most terrifying psychedelic incidents I've ever had in my life. The psychological dimension of horned wilderness entities deserves careful consideration. Why does the goat-human hybrid form provoke such a visceral response across cultures? The answer likely lies in what psychologists call the uncanny valley, that space where something is almost human but not quite, creating a deep discomfort. The Satyr form combines the familiar, such as a human torso and face, with the alien, goat legs, horns, and sometimes hooves, creating a being that violates our natural categories. This violation triggers primal fears about boundary transgression, the boundaries between human and animal, civilization and wilderness, order and chaos. Additionally, the goat's association with mountains and cliff tops into acrophobia, the fear of heights, while their reputation for sexual aggression, especially in Pan traditions, connects to anxieties about lust and loss of control. The horned wilderness entity thus becomes a perfect vessel for projecting our deepest fears about the wilderness within and without ourselves. The transition from folklore to modern encounters begins subtly, with reports that blur the line between traditional legend and contemporary testimony. These encounters, documented across decades and continents, suggest that whatever horned archetype haunts the human imagination has found new ways to manifest in our modern world. The following accounts are presented in a matter-of-fact style, preserving witness testimony as closely as possible to allow listeners to draw their own conclusions about these strange phenomena. The Maryland Goatman stands as one of America's most notorious horned humanoid legends, particularly documented in the Prince George's County area. Described consistently as half-man, half-goat, this being has reportedly terrorized residents since the 1950s, with encounters peaking during the 1970s. According to collected accounts, the Goatman typically appears as a muscular humanoid figure with the head, legs, and horns of a goat, often wielding an axe, as if he wasn't already terrifying enough. Witnesses describe an overwhelming putrid odor accompanying the creature, said to be a combination of rotting garbage and wet animal fur. One particularly terrifying account from 1971 involves a group of teenagers who encountered the Goatman while parked near a secluded road. They reported that the creature attacked their vehicle, leaving deep scratches in the car door with its axe or claws. The legend has become so ingrained in local folklore that even law enforcement historically received calls about the creature, though these were often dismissed as prank reports. Folklorists have traced the origins of this particular legend to possible misinterpretations of the area's history, including stories about a scientific facility that allegedly conducted experiments on goats, though no definitive evidence has ever surfaced to support this origin theory. The first documented media mention of the Maryland Goatman came in 1971 when the Prince George's County News reported on the brutal decapitation of a dog named Ginger in the town of Bowie. While not a direct encounter with the creature itself, this incident represents one of the earliest modern media reports connecting violence against animals to the Goatman legend. The case helped establish the Goatman's reputation as a dangerous being in the Maryland area. This report contributed to the growing body of evidence that convinced many local residents of the creature's existence, demonstrating how encounters with horned humanoids often include associated violence or unexplained animal mutilations. Distinct from the monstrous Maryland version, another horned humanoid figure appears in American folklore as an itinerant preacher who traveled the highways of the United States, particularly through the upland South region. This fascinating figure was described as having goat-like features, but was not considered threatening whatsoever. Instead, he was viewed as a traveling evangelist who pulled his cart with goats while spreading the gospel. Historical accounts suggest he was active during the early to mid-20th century, with some reports placing his appearances as early as the 1910s and continuing through the 1960s. Unlike the terrifying Goatman of Maryland, this figure was described as gentle yet eccentric, with witnesses noting his profound knowledge of Scripture despite his unsettling appearance. Some accounts describe him as having a full beard, cloven hooves instead of feet, and small horns protruding from his temples, though his most defining characteristic was reportedly his charismatic preaching style that drew crowds despite his unusual physical appearance. Folklorists have debated whether this figure was a real person with a medical condition like hypertrichosis or acromegaly, or whether he represents a symbolic figure merging Christian missionary traditions with older European horned deity traditions. A remarkable historical encounter is immortalized in stone in St. Paul de Verax, where a tympanum depicts the meeting between Paul the Hermit and a horned being identified in the inscription as a faunus. This artistic representation, dating from the medieval period, shows a distinctly goat-legged and horned figure alongside the hermit, suggesting an encounter between Christian holiness and pagan nature spirits. The depiction includes a tree of life, symbolically connecting the horned figure to ancient fertility and natural world traditions. While not a modern encounter report, this artistic representation reflects how medieval Christians conceptualized encounters between human spiritual seekers and horned entities from the natural world. The faunus in this depiction is shown with goat legs, small horns, and a human torso, representing the liminal space between civilization and wilderness that horned beings have traditionally occupied in European folklore. Such artistic representation suggests that encounters with horned humanoids were part of the cultural imagination long before modern paranormal reports, often serving as allegories for the tension between Christian virtues and pagan naturalism. Though not a typical Goatman, the Piazza bird encounter by explorer Louis Joliet and Father Marquette during their Mississippi expedition features horned characteristics that place it within the broader category of horned humanoid encounters. According to Father Marquette's journals, they encountered massive murals depicting these creatures, quote, as large as a calf, unquote, with, quote, horns on their heads like those of a deer, unquote. While primarily bird-like, the Piazza was depicted with humanoid elements and prominent horns, representing a hybrid being that merged avian, human, and horned animal characteristics. Local indigenous legends describe the Piazza as a supernatural creature that preyed on humans, with the horns serving as both a visual marker of its otherworldly nature and possibly a functional weapon. The encounter, recorded in the 17th century, demonstrates how horned humanoid-like beings have been part of North American encounter narratives long before modern paranormal investigations. The combination of horns, with other animal features reflects a common pattern in cross-cultural folklore, where horns signify supernatural power and connection to realms beyond ordinary human experience. Modern reports of satyr-like beings continue to appear in paranormal literature, though they are less common than the other humanoid encounters. These contemporary accounts typically describe beings matching the classical satyr appearance: human upper bodies with goat-like legs, small horns, and often musical instruments like panpipes. One documented encounter from the 1970s involved a group of hikers in a remote forest area who reported hearing strange flute-like music before encountering a small, goat-legged figure watching them from behind trees. The witnesses described the being as approximately 4 feet tall with shaggy legs, cloven hooves, and small curved horns. Unlike the terrifying Goatman of Maryland, this figure was described as shy and retreated when noticed. Another series of reports from the Pacific Northwest describes similar beings encountered near remote hot springs, where witnesses reported seeing multiple satyr-like figures bathing and playing music. These modern encounters often maintain the classical association between horned goat beings and music, natural settings, and a certain ambivalent relationship with humans, neither overtly hostile nor entirely friendly. According to Plutarch's account, as the army of Silas passed near Illyrian Apollonia, or modern-day Dirac, Albania, they encountered a strange being in a sacred valley called Nymphaio. The soldiers captured what was described as a satyr, matching the depiction in status and paintings of the time. When brought before Silas for questioning, the creature reportedly could not speak, but instead moaned and cried like a goat or a horse. This historical account represents one of the earliest documented encounters with a satyr-like being, described as having the physical characteristics traditionally associated with these mythological creatures. The sacred nature of the location where it was found suggests these beings were believed to inhabit special natural places in ancient Greek culture. In the Polish city of Lublin, a secretary working late at the town hall, now used as a courthouse, reported a terrifying midnight encounter. She witnessed mysterious creatures with horns hidden in their thick black hair. The encounter was so frightening that it left a physical mark. A table in the town hall still bears the burned imprint of a human hand, presumably from the incident. This historical case from the 17th century in Poland demonstrates how horned humanoid encounters were documented in official settings, with physical evidence that allegedly remained for centuries afterwards. The detailed description of horns hidden within their hair suggests these beings attempted to conceal their non-human features when observed by humans. A Russian encounter, documented by Pavel Bajov, who was born in 1879 and died in 1950, recounts the experience of a miner named Stepan, who was confronted by a strange woman described as the, quote, owner-mistress of the Copper Mountain, unquote. This being, referred to in the tale as having supernatural qualities, ordered Stepan to deliver a message to his bosses, calling them, quote, stinking he-goats, unquote, and demanding that they leave the Red Mountain Pit. Though represented as a folktale, it was reputedly based on true events and shows similarities to modern reports of underground-dwelling humanoids. The connection between mining operations and encounters with strange beings is a reoccurring theme in paranormal literature, suggesting these entities may be associated with subterranean environments. Paranormal researcher Margaret Fry and her Spanish pen pal had a disturbing encounter in their hotel room during the spring of 1970. They reported being visited by 3 entities described as, quote, horned devils, unquote. This encounter is particularly notable because it involved multiple witnesses who were actively researching paranormal phenomena. The fact that experienced paranormal investigators encounter these beings lends credibility to the account. The precise details of what transpired during this hotel room encounter aren't fully documented in the available sources, but it represents one of the more well-known cases of horned humanoid encounters from the early 1970s. A variant of the Goatman legend appears in Louisville, Kentucky, centered around the Pope Lick Trestle Bridge. Described as a bipedal creature 6 to 7 feet tall with dark fur, cloven hooves, and a horned goat head, this being reportedly attacks vehicles on dark roads. One witness described seeing, quote, this thing standing by the side of the road. It was huge, and it just stared at us. The eyes, I'll never forget the eyes. They were shining right at us. Then it screamed. It sounded like a goat, but... Unquote. The pattern of encounters typically involves a lone car on a dark road, a sudden thump or scrape, and the terrifying sight of a hairy, horned figure attacking the vehicle with an axe or rocks. This regional variant demonstrates how the horned humanoid archetype manifests across different American locations with consistent characteristics. Then you've got the various goat-like features of various humanoid encounters pulled from the awesome, incredible work of Albert Rosales, which includes the following. From, Tlahualilo, Durango, Mexico, 1955. Several laborers were returning to their ranch on horseback as they neared a crossroads near Huaca Mountain. They noticed a strange figure moving rapidly among the nearby brush. The figure was moving as fast as a horse, but the terrified witnesses noticed that it was clearly not a horse. The figure jumped a barbed wire fence about 100 meters from the witnesses, and at this point, they could see it in more detail. They described it as about 1.5 meters in height, with long, goat-like legs. On its head, it had two horn-like protrusions, and its face was covered with a thick, dark beard. One of the men suffered a nervous shock and fell from his horse. The bizarre satyr-like creature was quickly lost from sight among the brush. This is from Tarqui, near Cuenca, Ecuador, from 1965. A female peasant reported to the authorities that a local abandoned house, quote-unquote, she was able to see on separate occasions, had somebody or something taking refuge or hiding inside of it. According to the witness, Noelia, that whoever it was always around 3 in the morning, who apparently came there to sleep. Noelia immediately thought that it could be a thief or a quote-unquote drug addict that had begun to frequent the region. Thinking that things might get out of hand, Noelia decided to investigate herself. She went to the location one night, accompanied by several other neighbors or locals, and decided to confront what they were sure was a thief or robber. The abandoned house was located about 200 meters from hers in an almost direct line, except for several hills that blocked certain angles of vision. Armed with sticks and knives, they invaded the house, sure they were going to catch someone hiding there, but were surprised to find it empty. Looking around for clues, one of the group suddenly noticed a strange odor, which the group could only compare to rotten eggs or sulfur. There was a sudden change of ambiance, and the group felt that some unseen presence was stalking them. Suddenly, something appeared to leave the abandoned house, something that couldn't be seen. At the same time, the strong odor still permeated the air. The group, who was now afraid, decided to leave the house, and as they stepped out of the house, they all saw at about 40 meters away a quote-unquote man that appeared to be staring at them intently. Apparently, the stranger had been observing the group's behavior for quite some time. The man appeared to be wearing a worn gray cloak or hooded outfit, which covered him completely, and his face was not visible to the group. Upon seeing the strange figure, the group immediately ran in his direction in an attempt to capture him, quote-unquote him. At the same time, the stranger did the same, but according to Noelia, in a very peculiar manner. As he ran away, the group noticed that he never seemed to turn around, and seemed to be able to run, quote-unquote run, remaining in the position facing the astounded crowd of pursuers. He maintained this position for the whole time he fled from the group. The stranger seemed to be able to gain distance from the group in great leaps and bounds, and as the group advanced, they noticed strange tracks on the sandy terrain on which the stranger had fled over. The strange tracks were not normal feet or footwear. The stunned witnesses could only compare them to those of quote-unquote goat's feet. Alarmed, the group stopped in unison and ended their pursuit. Terrified, they watched as the quote-unquote man also stopped and then began to glide away at high speed without touching the ground until he disappeared behind a nearby hill. That's freaky. Dude never turned around. Ugh, Jesus. This one's from near Longleat Woods, Warminster, England. Longleat Woods? Warminster, England. It's August 14th, 1972, around 2:30 a.m. It says later that same night, as a previous case, A married couple from Surrey was in their parked car when they saw two small red lights come out of the wooded area and leap into the sky. One headed over to Clay Hill, the other east towards Warminster. The couple then went directly to the site where the UFOs had appeared. This is related to the whole Warminster Triangle, Warminster sightings, but this specifically relates to goatness. The couple then went directly to the site where the UFOs had appeared and at once met what they described as a strong negative sensation. They then heard strange shooting sounds. The wife felt a presence and ran back to the car. Her husband then perceived what he described to be a, quote, awesome creature, unquote, that was completely fluorescent green in color. He then ran to join his wife. A drawing made by the witness shows a goat-like creature, green in color, of immense size, with scales on its belly like a fish. Sounds a lot kind of like a quinator. This one's from the Abruzzo region in Italy, from August 1984. In an isolated field, an anonymous witness encountered a seemingly abandoned concrete blockhouse with a hostile air to it. A being then came out of it. He's described as tall, robust, with olive tan skin. In an abrupt manner, he asked the witness what he was doing in the area. He had a strong and clear voice with a foreign accent. The witness told him that he was a neighbor, but then the stranger told him that he didn't want anyone around his property. The witness left the area, but came back several days later and hid nearby some bushes and watched the area with binoculars. Okay, kind of a creep. At one point, as he was watching the area, he saw several tall beings exit the blockhouse. The beings seemed to suddenly, quote-unquote, shed their skin and become reddish and luminous with goat-like horns and tails. Terrified, the witness left the area. Well, that's what you get for being a creep. This is from Normandy, Texas, 1992. The witness was awakened by her dogs barking fiercely outside her bedroom window. She sat up in bed and looked out the window where the outside light was sufficient for her viewing. She was then shocked to see a strange, quote-unquote, Goatman-like creature walking under her pecan tree. Jesus, that'll start a fucking Texas flame war. While her dogs steadily nipped at its heels. The creature was about 7 feet tall and was standing upright like a man with slightly curved shoulders, with the horns and hooves of a goat. Its hands were slightly curled, with some very nasty-looking gray fingernails. His skin was a yellowish-green color, with sparse hair all about the body. Its legs and body were that of a man. She caught a glimpse of the side of his face, which was nearly the shape of a man's. The creature never turned to look at her and quickly walked away from the area and the dogs. Later, from time to time, she could hear the sound of a quote-unquote goat calling in the night. According to the witness, there are no goats in the area. This is from northern New Mexico, spring 1992. The uncle of a local police chief claimed to have been driving into town late at night when he saw a woman dressed in red walking along the road. He stopped to offer her a ride into town. She climbed into the front seat of his pickup truck, and as he turned to ask her why she was walking on a deserted road so late at night, he noticed that she had, quote, hairy goat legs and hooves, unquote. She then instantly dematerialized from the front seat of his truck. This is actually a reoccurring theme in a lot of folkloric encounters with mysterious, what appear to be people, until someone frequently notices that they apparently have goat hooves or goat legs hidden under a dress or where their normal human feet should be. This is from near Antequera, Malaga, Spain, August 2011. A night watchman guarding a quote-unquote restricted area near Antequera was making his rounds when he was suddenly confronted by a bizarre humanoid figure that appeared to have quote-unquote goat feet and was moving over the ground as if on a conveyor belt. The humanoid was coming from an inaccessible area which dead-ended on a precipice. As the humanoid floated by, he looked at the witness, quote-unquote, with great intensity, and then disappeared into a nearby wooded area. The stunned guard called a co-worker to keep him company after he told him what he had seen. Then, of course, there's the various Dallas-Fort Worth area goatmen. There's several intermingling legends that overlap and intermix, but I plan on getting into this at a later date as far as an episode on Dallas-Fort Worth cryptids and mysterious quote-unquote humanoid entities, etc. There's also, of course, the immense flip side to this, where goats, specifically, are the reoccurring victim in various aspects of humanoid encounters, chupacabra, that's a big one, alien or, strange mutilations, not to mention sacrificial rituals. Not just the scapegoat ritual, but various bloodletting rituals through tons of different religious practices. But that is such a wide berth that I don't have enough time, unfortunately, to cover that much material. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was just a little something extra I was looking into. And thought I'd throw it out as a bonus episode for you guys, if anyone's interested. So, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again, you guys, for 200 subs on YouTube. I'm still, wow. You guys. This fucking guy over here. You over there. And that guy over there. The goat, one and all. This has been Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclast, the podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luck. I just want to say thanks again, everyone, for 200. And here's to 200 more. We'll see you guys on the next one. The peaks and valleys, high strangeness, and deep weirdness in the outer limits of the Twilight Zone. Peace out.
Well, I just think...